Here we go, here we go. I am live. Good evening. Welcome, welcome. For those of you joining me live, hi. Drop me a hey if you're watching live. For those of you who are joining me on replay, drop me a replay in the comments. Let me know when you're watching and where you're watching from. I'm just going to do a bit of sharing and then I will do some introductions. So my name's Heidi Mavir. I'm the Unstoppable Woman. I'm a coach, an activist, a writer, a public speaker, all-round badass. I live in Wakefield with my daughter Tilly. She's amazing. And this is my Unstoppables series. And I can see my guest. She's on. Just sit tight, Lydia. I will invite you in just a second. So every week, every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, live here on Facebook, on my page, Heidi Mavir, The Unstoppable Woman, I interview someone different. So tonight, I am going to be interviewing someone amazing, because they're always amazing, but this one's especially amazing. So I'm just going to get her live to join me. If you're watching this live and you want to do a share, that would be awesome. Give it a share. So I've just invited Lydia on, and then hopefully anyone who's watching live would give us a quick yes, we can see and hear you. That would be amazing. You may also be watching this on YouTube, because I do
Hello.
YouTube as well. Hello. I can see you. I can hear you. Are you all right?
Yes, I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm great, thanks. Oh my goodness, the tech is working for the second week in a row. I'm so chuffed. So I'm just going to do a little bit of sharing this to my group. Anyone who is in my group, you will be able to watch this. If you're not yet in my group, I have an open group. It's free to join. Go to my page, Heidi Mavir, The Unstoppable Woman. The group is called Heidi Mavir, The Unstoppable Inspiration Station. And we do awesome things in there together. And I'm just about to post this in here as well. Excellent. So we've got viewers. Louise is watching. Hi, Lou. Can you see us? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Amazing.
I can see you.
Amazing. Excellent. I'm so pleased we're doing this. I'm so chuffed
Me
that we're
too.
doing this. I'm properly excited. So the brief for the Unstoppable series is that I interview people who kind of like have the same approach to life, interests, passions as I do, which is, you know, intersectional feminism, activism, being good to yourself, removing stigma around mental health. They're kind of like my big things. And when we first talked about it and you said you would do it, I was like, yes, because you tick all of those boxes and a lot more. Not that you're just a box ticker. I don't mean that, but you know.
I am a box ticker, though.
Well, yes, all the major food groups are represented, aren't they? In one place.
I am an Arts Council grant waiting to happen, is how I've been described.
Ooh, mixed race. Ooh, lesbian. Amazing. Ooh, sometimes ticks the disability box. Excellent.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, do you want to give a little bit of background? Just talk a little about yourself, who you are, where you're from.
Just realised that all of my laundry is in the background. How rude of it.
If I do this, you'll be able to see the stuff I've not yet unpacked from my weekend away. So, we're good. Come on then, tell us a bit about you.
So, well, first of all, I wanted to say that, like, it must be a year ago. I remember I messaged you and I said, oh, I would love to be one of your Unstoppable Women and do a live. And you sort of said, oh, cool, that's good to know. And I didn't hear anything more. And I was like, oh, okay. Obviously, it's not the right time. And then when I got that message, no, because it definitely, then when I mentioned it, it wasn't the right time for me. I was not in the best place. It was not the right time. And then you messaged me, two and a half weeks ago, and we're like, oh, do you want to do this thing? And I was like, yes, because now is the right time. So it's just all about when the right time in your life is. And actually, one of the things I want to talk about tonight is personal timelines, because, you know, my timeline has been very, very long and slow. But so have lots of people's, and it's okay if that happens. So I will waffle and I will go off topic, because my brain, that's the way my brain works.
We're both like proper tangenters, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Woo! Squirrels. There's going to be lots of squirrels on tonight. That's
lots of
cool.
squirrels.
And we agreed before we chatted that we would just kind of wing it and see what
Yeah,
conversation comes up. So we don't really know. We've got an idea of the kind of things we're going to talk about,
yeah,
but we're going to see where the
definitely.
conversation takes us. So for the next hour, we're going to waffle, and it'd be
Yeah,
great. I'm
we are.
sure people will.
Just
The idea is that you've got a story to tell and a bit of wisdom to share, and beyond that,
yeah.
that's the brief. Go on. Sorry.
Full disclosure, I have a dreadful cold, so there might
Okay.
be some sneezing and blowing of nose. I apologise, and some coughing. But I've watched lots of lives of you, Heidi, coughing terribly back when you had your terrible cough. Oh, that
Yeah,
was
the
weeks of
urine
coughing,
cough.
coughing, coughing.
God.
But
Yeah, yeah.
so my name's Lydia Bernsmeier-Rullow. I am a poet, drag king, activist also, soon to be journalist, but we'll come to that in a little while. Singer, compere and host. I do a bit of everything. And I also have clinical depression, and I have done for probably 20 years. I was diagnosed when I was 19, but probably longer than
Snap.
20 years actually. Snap! Yay! Yeah, I was at
Yeah.
university going, everything's great, but why can't I stop crying? You know, and so it was just after I'd been dumped by my first ever girlfriend, and
That'll do it.
so I was like, that was the first trigger, and it was terrible, and I never should have gone back to university that year. I should have waited until I was well, but instead I got threatened with being taken to hospital because I was in such a dark place. I was very lucky to have some excellent tutors, one of whom might be watching or will definitely watch later, Gabrielle Malcolm, who's just a fantastic woman who, 15, 18 years later is still in my life. I went to the doctor and they gave me some antidepressants, and I've been on and off various medications ever since. At one point, they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. But as my mum loves to remind me, you picked that diagnosis for yourself. And let me explain why. Because the psychiatrist said, well, you've either got bipolar disorder or you have a personality disorder. And I was like, don't tell me that there's something wrong with my personality, because my personality can't be changed. My personality is me. So you're telling me that
Also,
something...
it's sparkling and amazing, so that can't be right. There's
I
nothing wrong with
know,
that.
right? To be fair,
I
you
think you're
only...
fine. My personality is fucking spot on, mate.
To be fair, you didn't see me 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, this is when I was seeing the psychiatrist for this, and they gave me this diagnosis. And I was at university again. I went to do my teacher training, and I was all over the place. And the reason I was all over the place was because it was a complete change and I wasn't on the right medication. So they put me on some mood stabilizers. Now, mood stabilizers do exactly that. They stop you feeling things. So this sparkling, witty, 35-year-old woman you see before you didn't exist. I was just...
Yeah.
And I couldn't hack it as a teacher because I wasn't well. So I came out of that job and went into... Well, I went to work for a major supermarket in the offices, and every single job I've had really hasn't worked for me because I'm not a yes person. I'm not, I won't just blindly go along with whatever they ask
I'd
me
go
to
as
do.
far as to say you're a bit of a no person,
I'm
Lydia.
rather a no person. That's true.
In the best
Excuse
way.
me.
In the best way.
Yeah, I am. One of my cornerstones in life is fairness. And it's one of the things that I've really struggled with my depression, because if something isn't fair, I find it really difficult to deal with. So, for example, there was one job I had where we weren't allowed to work from home. But one person who happened to be the boss's son was allowed to work from home one day per week. And
Yep.
I found that extremely unfair, and I wouldn't let it go. And it kind of ruined the job I was at. But actually, I know that I was in the right. It was completely unfair. It was nepotistic. And leaving that job was probably the best decision. Unfortunately, leaving that job, I found the perfect position, and they made me redundant after 3 months. So 3 months ago, and I thought I was doing great. I was doing a communications role. I was really enjoying it. And also there were two of us doing it. They made me redundant, and they didn't make the other girl redundant, who was younger and more, probably more experienced in that particular role, but definitely not as experienced in writing as I was. And it absolutely destroyed me. I didn't know why I'd been made redundant. And it happened in September, so it's been coming up a lot in my, my on this day memories. But now I get to go, do you know what, the fact that happened is great. I'm really glad that happened, because if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. I then went to work as a chef for 6 months, and I got bullied so badly by the head chef that I had a full-on mental collapse. I really enjoyed it at first. It definitely helped with my depression, because I was on my feet all day. I was being very creative. I was sort of designing my own dishes and things like that, and I wasn't fast enough because I was brand new. I'd never done it before, and the head chef was giving me a lot of extra responsibility, which I shouldn't have been having. But because I'd never done that job before, I didn't really know that it wasn't okay. So I had an absolute breakdown, found myself sat in the car, not wanting to go home and wanting to harm myself. So I phoned a good friend of mine, crying my eyes out, and he came around the next day, and we got some things in order. I stopped working there. I went to the doctor, because at that point I wasn't on tablets. Oh no, I was on tablets. I was on Prozac. Went to the doctor, and the doctor said,
It's a bit of Prozac.
"Oh yeah, Prozac can cause suicidal thoughts." Isn't that great? Isn't that great?
This might help. It also might make you want to kill yourself. Give it a go.
Yeah, one or two ways.
Could go one or two ways.
Yeah. So they put me onto something else, which is what I've been on since to this day, which is escitalopram, which is on the list of medications which may be affected by Brexit. So,
and a lot of people are on escitalopram. It's kind of like sort of like one of the main drugs that is prescribed to people who have mental health conditions, particularly people with depression and anxiety. It's most people who are on medication for depression have been on citalopram at some point.
At some point, yeah. And I found it to be really effective. But last Christmas, in fact, not last Christmas, wait a minute, what year are we in? 2019. So it was Christmas 2017. Oh man, these years are just flying by. They're just flying by. Christmas 2017.
It's like this. And you're just on a platform watching your life flash before you.
As long as we're not getting on those trains, it's okay. It's okay. I've started using that a lot in my life. Like, oh, well, we'll come to that. That's coming in the next section, which is now. So, Christmas 2017, I forgot. I ran out of my tablets, and then I forgot to go and get a new prescription, because that's what happens when you have depression. You can't remember things. And remember, there's a really funny comedy special by Ellen DeGeneres from about 20 years ago, where she's talking about how she wishes she could be the sort of person who takes ginkgo biloba every day. A little ginkgo biloba. It really helps your mental capacity and your concentration. But unfortunately, in order to take ginkgo biloba every day, you already have to be the sort of person who can remember to take it every day. Yeah, and that's the thing about antidepressants. I have so many reminders, and even when the reminders come up on my phone, I don't automatically take them, and I don't know why that is. It's one of these sort of impossible tasks. Maybe it's about something to do with control, and it's like I'm not letting my phone tell me when to take them, or it's usually when I've got something else on, so I'm at work and my alarm will go off, and if I don't finish this thing, then I'm gonna forget to do that thing, so I'll do that and then I'll take the tablets.
It's interesting that you say that. Sorry to interrupt, but you reminded me. I read an article about a fortnight ago that basically was saying that procrastination is a mental health issue. And it was saying, like, if often if you're someone who has mental health issues, um that will show up in lots of different ways, and one of the ways that will show up is in procrastination.
Oh
And
yeah.
that it isn't just that you're like a bit useless at being organized, and it isn't that you're like a bit lazy. It's like there's something about the thought processing, and with some mental health conditions, particularly depression and anxiety is what I was talking about, where procrastination is how it manifests in your life, and like in really simple ways. And certainly when I was unwell, that was definitely true for me. Definitely.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I think it's something that people don't understand. I think people think with mental health issues that, particularly if people have never experienced poor mental health, or they have, but they haven't know that's what that is. I think that's more common actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that there's this misunderstanding around it that you just go to the doctor and they give you medication and then you're better, and that isn't the way that that works.
Oh, if
and
only
and
that
and
was the
they don't.
case.
Oh God. And they don't
Can you
understand
imagine?
that. Oh. And they don't understand that, yeah, yes, medication has its place. 100% I think medication has its place. Not always. And sometimes it can be a bit of a plaster to cover over the cracks and doesn't actually do you any good, depending on what the triggers are. But I think that there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding around, well, just take some antidepressant medication. And
Yeah.
if part of your mental health condition is that you have issues around this, I must
Scheduling.
do this to be
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's also that stuff around, I had a lot of resistance to taking medication because I didn't want to believe that in order to be normal, which I would
Normal.
never use that word now, that's why I'm putting
Yeah.
it like this, in order to function like a regular person, I had to take medication.
Yeah.
Like that would, it felt really, that was as problematic as anything else for me. And I had to do a lot of work on that in order to get myself to a place where I could take the medication to then get
Yeah.
better, to get some counselling to, but this thing of, I know that we talk about, well, if you had a broken leg, you'd go and see a doctor and they would put it in a pot and it would be better. Yes. And mental health and poor mental health is an illness, and you should see a doctor and you should get treatment. And unlike other illnesses, it's not always as straightforward as take these home, take one a day.
To
It
be
just
honest,
isn't.
I'd really love to get rid of the analogy of, oh, if you had a broken leg, because it's not like having a broken leg, because it's not fixable. It's more like having something like diabetes. That's the way I describe it. So when I've had other
Management
friends,
rather than, yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I never say, despite however well I feel, I never say that, oh, I'm fine now. This is cured, because it's unlikely that it's cured. And I sort of say, I'm in remission from depression, because that way, if and when it does come back, I don't feel like a failure. I don't feel like,
Yes.
you know, because
Yes.
once, the first few times that you have these dips where I call it falling in a hole. The first few times you fall in a hole and stay down there, and then get out of it. The next time you fall in, you think, why couldn't I just cope? Why couldn't I just be normal? Um,
I think it's
but
also dangerous to expect your brain to just be different. It's
yeah,
like depression and anxiety, and it's different for everybody. Like my mental health it was originally diagnosed as depression, but actually, really, it's extreme anxiety, and I have PTSD. Um, those things are never going to go away
no,
because it's how my brain has handled stimulus.
yeah,
Like your brain is a computer and it responds to data. And some of the data that's been put into my computer means that my brain is wired a particular way. And
yeah, yeah,
whilst I can do other things to manage that and to work around the wiring in a way, it's that's how I am. That's who I am. And
yeah,
actually I think there's real power in being able to own that and be
yeah,
like, this is me. And sometimes, if things don't go quite right and I'm a bit tired and I'm a bit emotional, and especially if I've had a drink, which is why I've been working on my drinking, but
yeah.
those things combined, I can probably behave really erratically, and you might
Oh
think
yeah,
that I'm a complete nutcase.
Yeah.
That's how I show up in the world. That's going to have to be okay. It's part of who I am. It's an ongoing condition. That does not mean that I don't have a contribution to make. It doesn't mean that I'm not valuable. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I'm broken. That's part of who I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem that we get with mental health, is that people think, oh, they've got depression, you know,
You
like...
see, I think, and I've thought this for a long time, I think I have a depressive personality, despite the fact that I can be very bright and colourful and loving and happy. The baseline for me is very low, and it always has been. And I always remember me being quite a sad little girl. And I don't know whether that's an innate thing, it's a nature thing, or it's to do with my first ever memory, which was a racist incident at school, you know, at 6 years old, whether those little things are what caused it to be like this. But I can accept that this is the person I am. And I can now accept that I need to be on medication, because to go back to what I was saying before, so I forgot to take my tablets. So I forgot to get my prescription. So for the whole of the Christmas season, I didn't have any tablets. And it came into January and I was like, oh, do you know what? I feel okay. I feel all right. So I didn't take them. I didn't go and get more. I just stopped taking them altogether. And it was around that time I started working with you in the boot camp. And I would advocate and celebrate and encourage as many people to go onto Heidi's boot camps as can possibly go on, because it really did change my life. It changed my perspective on so many things. It wasn't just what I was learning in boot camp, it was also the reading I was doing and that she was suggesting that I did. It changed everything. And honestly, if I hadn't have been in the boot camp and had also not been taking my tablets, I don't know if I'd be here today. But I did go to the boot camp on Facebook and learnt lots of strategies, and actually like mindfulness strategies, the tapping, which is just so fantastic, about the monkey that lives inside my head. He's a right bastard, and who that monkey represents, little fucker, where it came from, who it represents, you know, that's been there for 20 years. And these strategies helped me get through the next sort of 6 months. Unfortunately, around June time, some stuff happened at work where I wasn't getting enough support. I had a manager who was not supportive at all. When I was returning from a non-contact role, so I wasn't on the phones, to going back on the phones. I hadn't been on the phones for 2 years at that point, and I got like half a day of refreshment training, and that wasn't enough. It wasn't what I needed. Within 3 days, I'd completely spiraled, and luckily I had another excellent manager who effectively told me that it was okay for me to go off sick, because I didn't want to do that. So I was then off work for 3 months.
Had people who said that to them.
Yeah, she basically said, oh, you know, I've got like 3 people on my team off at the moment because they're not well. You know, sometimes you've just got to. And she did it in a very subtle way. But then I didn't go back to work for 3 months. And in that 3 months, because I was already off my tablets and I was extremely irrational, I stayed off my tablets. I didn't want to go on them. I point blank refused to go back on them. And the thing about mental health conditions and being a patient is, quite rightly, no one is allowed to tell you that you must do something. No one can say you have to do this, you have to go back on these tablets. So I didn't. But what I would say is, when people are depressed, they're not very rational. So that's
the understatement of the evening.
They're not rational at all. They're quite irrational, actually. And I wish that... I don't know, because I don't know how I would have responded to someone saying, you know, you have to go on your tablets. But on the other hand, being off them was not good. You know, it was not a good time. I was really trying to keep up with the mindfulness and all the techniques, but I was absolutely drowning. Couldn't cope. Last summer was the hottest, longest summer we had for years, and you know, England got through to the semis, and it was wonderful. And all I did was sit in my room and cry the whole summer. I actually wrote a poem about the summer I punished myself, is what I called it. I didn't celebrate my birthday.
I can remember us having conversations at that time, because we were just like intermittently checking in with each other, weren't we? And
Yeah, we were.
I can remember saying to someone, "Oh, my friend Lydia, she's in a really, really dark place, and I don't know what to do for her." And I've been there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do.
No.
You know? And
because I had to do it for myself.
Isolating. Yeah, it's so isolating, because it isn't like a no one can do it for you kind of thing. You need people around you to like love on you hard while you're working through it. Like,
shout out to my wife, Nikki.
Yeah. And you need people who are going to listen, and are not going to judge you, and who are going to, love you, basically.
Yeah.
And you have to also, I think the hardest thing about going through periods like that for me is that, you hear all the things of, it'll pass, it will get better. But when you're in it, it feels so overwhelming, and you can't see a way out.
No.
And you kind of just need to gather people around you to hold you tight while you ride it out.
To stop you completely falling apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really isolating and really hard.
I was extremely lucky to have the support of my wife. She was incredible, and I really can't thank her enough. I also, during that time, so I was in therapy, and I was learning a lot about myself. I had 6 weeks of diagnostic therapy, and at the end of it, she suggested psychodynamic psychotherapy, which I haven't undertaken yet, because it's very draining. It's extremely mentally difficult to do this sort of therapy, because you've got to go into your childhood and think about every single little thing and how it brought you to be the person that you are today. And at the moment, I'm quite stable, but I had the 6 weeks of diagnostic therapy, and I got a lot out of it, but I still wasn't feeling very well. And I took my mum out for afternoon tea one day, and I learned that she had also had some very, very dark times, and we became closer than ever after that conversation. I never knew how bad it had got for her. And we sat and we had a cry, and she told me that she thinks that my writing's wonderful and that's what I should be doing. And it was like a light came on in my head. I was still off work for a long while. It's gone dark on your end.
I know it has. I was just doing a little bit of jiggery pokery with my tablet to try and get myself some light. I'm going to put a lamp on. Go on, keep going. I apologise. Go on, keep going.
It's okay. So after 3 months, after 2.5 months, I went back to my doctor, and I kind of went, fine, if I've got to be on the tablets, I'll go back on the tablets. Fine, whatever, fine. I didn't want to, as you may be able to tell from what I just said, but I was like, everyone wants me to go on these tablets, I may as well just go on them. And within 2 weeks, I was already starting to feel a little bit better. And then I went back to work, and actually work was not the big scary beast that I thought it was going to be. It was fine. I went into training. They gave me a great sort of return to work on short hours, so I could, get back into the swing of things. And then, because the seasons were changing, I said to my doctor that I thought I should increase my dose, because when it gets to the winter, it's like, is this my ordinary depression or is this seasonal affective disorder? Oh, wait, it's both. So I said, can I increase my dosage? Now, what I didn't realise at that point was that, because I've doubled my dosage, I've gone to 20 milligrams of escitalopram. And what I didn't know at that point is that that's the highest dose you can take, which is a challenge, because it means that if these stop working, I will have to change tablets. I wish I'd gone to 15 and then I could have increased them. But then again, maybe I'll be able to drop them down in, next spring. I don't know. So I increased them to 20 milligrams. And after about 4 or 5 days, I started getting really bad suicidal feelings again. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned is that when I'm not on tablets, and even when I am on tablets, a lot of the time I have suicidal ideation. The difference between suicidal ideation and suicidal feelings is that suicidal ideation is just like an idea at the back of your mind about dying all the time, about how it would be better if you weren't here. Suicidal feelings are, I want to die. And then there's planning, and then, the execution, which is a terrible word for it. I really wish I hadn't said that word, but I know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I was really worried, and luckily at that point I had a great manager, and I just went to her at work, and I was like, I don't want to be here. And she said, at work? I said, no. So she sat me down, we phoned the doctor, I went to see the doctor, and she said, oh yeah, well, you probably always felt like this. The thing is, when you increase your dosage, it can make you feel more suicidal, because you probably always felt like this. You just didn't have the motivation. So apparently, increasing the dose gives you the motivation to, start making plans. And
it is scary, though, that
is
people
scary.
Pitch up at GPs' offices and cats just attack me, and get and are given tablets and sent away without the proper aftercare.
I wasn't expecting that to happen at all. I never thought that I would feel that way. So when it happened, I was terrified. I was really scared that I was going to do something. And I can joke about it now, because it's just crazy. It's crazy. But at that point, because they kept asking me, and at work they kept asking me, do you know how you would do it if you were going to do it? And I did. I knew exactly how I'd do it. And so I stayed off work for 2 days while I sort of sorted myself out, and then came back, and I was okay again then. It was just this where I'd plateaued on the medication, and I needed to come back down to a sort of baseline. So at that time, we're going to move into more positive stuff now, because I've been on those tablets since then. So it's been a year that I've been on these tablets now, and I actually feel fine. I'm in remission. I don't have those dark feelings, and it's really weird when you've had an episode, or you've had a breakdown, and then you start feeling stable, because you almost can't remember. It's like childbirth. You almost can't remember how bad it was, and that's sort of a blessing, because I don't really want to remember those times, and it means that I can incorporate it into my stand-up, and I actually did a stand-up show which is called Barking Tales, which is a Manchester-based comedy night, which is for people. It's all people with mental health problems on the stage, and it's brilliant. If you get the chance, go to it. Look it up, Barking Tales. For ages, I didn't apply for it because I thought it was actually in Barking, but it's not. It's in Manchester.
People who don't know, Barking is in Essex, so that would be quite a trip.
It would have been a trip, but it was actually literally 10 minutes away from my door. So, and I remember this particular stand-up night. I went in there I hadn't done it for ages, and I was still sort of in recovery. I'm really sorry about all the snotty nose. I'm still in recovery, and I went in with loads of notes, planning to read. And as soon as I got up there, I didn't even look at my notes once. I just started talking about my mental health, because the thing about mental health problems, when you're not in them, and even when you are in them, they're just insane. Like the things that you do. Like there was this one time last summer where I thought I'm going to do some art therapy. So I went to WH Smith in Stockport to buy some paint and some other bits and pieces. And while I was there, I saw this bee. And it was on the precinct where there were no flowers, there was nothing, and it was a boiling hot day, no water. And I burst into tears because I was like, that bee's going to die and there's nothing I can do to save it. That was me with depression, crying over a bee. You know, and the crazy thoughts that you have, the crazy paranoia. I mean, the paranoia, my word, you can't imagine that anything that you're doing isn't offending or upsetting somebody, you know.
And the extreme fear that accompanies that. I don't know if you get this, but I talk about this in boot camp quite a lot, that not just people might laugh at me, like literally my over anxious brain, when it's on one, my monkey mind tells me that if I mess something up, then the people in the room are going to turn on me, shout at me, put me in a bag, drag me outside and kick me to death. Like that's how extreme my fear is around upsetting people, disappointing people, having people think that I'm weird. You know, it's terrifying.
And yet the weirdest people I know are also the best. It's weird because the people who aren't weird are so...
Sorry, I pressed a button.
Thought I'd lost you. Can you hear? Oof.
Yes, I can still hear you.
Excellent.
That was close. Sorry.
I am, as much as I would like to not have depression, I know that the reason I am the person I am today is because I have depression. And I also know that it's a legacy because I'm third generation depressed. I'm also third generation Catholic guilt. That means that although I've never been in a Catholic church, I still get the guilt just constantly. My nana had mental health problems, and the way she was treated, because it was the 50s, was that she was put into an institution and given electroshock therapy back when it was horrific. My mum had depression, my mum had depression very badly about 15, 16, 17 years ago. And she kept it from me and my brother. So that was the conversation that I had last year when I found out how bad it had got. And I have depression. So it's, you know, this is why I 100% think that it's a hereditary thing.
I agree.
I also
100%.
think
I didn't ever... Sorry, go on. Sorry.
It's okay. I think it's hereditary, but I also think it's something to do with... Have you ever heard of generational trauma?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. I've done a lot of work on that.
Oh, yeah. So, for example... Of course you've heard of it. Everyone's heard of it. For example, Holocaust survivors' grandchildren still, in their DNA, have evidence of this trauma that happened 80 years ago. And things that happened to my nana that were traumatic have most certainly come down through the generations. And it's, you know, it's a combination of environment, nature, religion, because, you know, my mum grew up in a Catholic family, I grew up in a Church of England family, and there's a lot of guilt that comes with that. So it all makes up me, you know, and that's okay. It's okay that I have depression, that I have this illness. And now, 2019, the start of the year, I was doing a Radio Manchester programme, which is called The Dead Good Show. Listen, it's dead good. It's the clue is in the title. It's every night at 7:00, and I go in a couple of times a month as one of the posse members. So during that time, I've always wanted to work at the BBC, because I'm going to talk about, because we've got 20 minutes left. I think it's time to start talking about the universe and how you can use it to your benefit, even if you've got depression. Because I remember that was one of the things I said I was going to talk about. When you introduced me to manifesting and the idea of putting positive stuff out there, I think I sent you a message, or I put a message on the group to say, how do you do this if you've got depression, if you can't be positive? And I cannot remember what the answer was, but I just was really lost about it, because I love the idea of it. Positive mental attitude. Remember that advert for a positive mental attitude? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can do that. I can do that. I love the idea of it.
Like,
you're saying nothing.
We're going down some kind of cul-de-sac. I'm not falling for that one.
So on the back of that, I started reading The Secret, and found that really interesting. But I was doing it a little bit. I remember I used to do the little videos in the group about how in boot camp, about how I've managed to manifest myself a parking space outside of Pets at Home and things like that. And when it starts working, it's really exciting. But the thing about manifesting is you have to have patience, and that's the thing that I was lacking for a long time. And even now, I like things to happen like now or sooner. You know, I'm waiting for this new job, which I'll come on to in a minute. It's like I'm pulling my eyebrows out. I'm so desperate to finish at where I am now and move on to the next one. But I used to go into...
Just touching on that, though, before you move on. One thing, next week I'm going to speak to Gemma Kennedy, and Gemma is a queer blogger, and she owns Queers & Co. zine, which I don't know if you've seen. I've just shared a petition because she's been refused copyright on the name. It's considered to be offensive to British values. Anyway, she and I, she's...
Wait a minute, sorry. Are these the British values that took us out of the EU? Because I feel like they're already offensive.
Yeah. But she and I are going to talk next week, and one of the things that she and I spoke about quite a lot when we last chatted on the phone, like in private, was this thing of there's a language of privilege around manifesting as an industry. And there's a thing about, just be grateful, just manifest stuff. And like, actually, that's all right, Dan, hi. Actually, when you're someone who has mental health condition, or when you're in an underrepresented group, or when you're, just not, that it isn't an equal playing field when it comes to manifesting.
No.
And I think, and that can be a big turn off for people, because it's easy to look at people on Instagram going, look, I just manifested this, blah, blah, blah. And you'd be like, fuck you. Like, of course you did, because you're here and I'm here, and I'm never going to even be on the same baseline as you. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not going to lie to you. When you were talking about manifesting, when I first started following you, I was like, this doesn't work. Yeah, like,
whatever, white woman.
Why are you reading my mind right now?
Shut up, white lady.
Stay in your lane.
It's true,
constant arguments in groups. And actually, what needs to happen is there needs to be more queer people of colour, and men actually doing manifesting work with people who are sort of less privileged or in minorities. But what I can say is, and I don't downplay the amount of privilege I have. I'm university educated. My parents are still together and own a house. I have a lot of privilege, but I also have quite severe mental health problems. I'm brown, I'm queer, and I'm a woman. So it's the balance. It's not the Oppression Olympics are...
The Oppression Olympics.
The Oppression Olympics are strong with this one. As I said, it's...
Like, you're at least a bronze medalist.
Brown medalist.
You're a brown medalist in the Oppression Olympics.
In the Oppression Olympics, yeah. Every brown person has one. But if I'm able to manifest, which like, when I tell this next sort of story, this is how I knew that manifesting worked, and that it is real and it can be done. So, are you trying to get into the kitchen? Nikki's trying to get into the kitchen, which is behind me. Go on. You didn't appear on screen, don't worry. Sorry. I'm in the dining room.
Is she naked? Is there a reason why we
No,
can't
she's
see
not.
her?
She's not naked. She just doesn't like being on screen.
Okay.
So, in December, January last year, I was like, do you know what? I really want to work at the BBC. It's something I've wanted for years. My dad works at the BBC. He's a radio presenter, a broadcast journalist. And I heard that phrase for what he did, and I was like, I think that's what I want to do. I'd never had a job title for it. I thought, this is what I want to do. Had no idea how to do it. And I've been sort of thinking about wanting to work for the BBC for a long time. Never really got anywhere. But after the Manchester bomb and singing Don't Look Back in Anger, and the BBC were getting in touch with me fairly regularly for interviews about various things. Then they invited me to come do the Dead Good show.
Just take a step back from that. You need to frame that for us.
I do need to frame that, sorry.
Fill that in.
So after the bomb in the terrorist attack in 2017, there was a vigil in St Anne's Square, and at the end of the vigil, there was a vigil and a 2-minute silence, and I started singing at the end of the 2-minute silence. I started singing "Don't Look Back in Anger," and everyone joined in, and it went viral all over the world. And
you did that.
This guy.
That's like my claim to fame. My friend Lydia started the "Don't Look Back in Anger." You know, that's why. Yeah, it's an amazing legacy. It's amazing.
Yeah, you'll either know me as Lydia or as that woman, because that's what Noel Gallagher calls me. That one woman. Learn my name, Noel. God. Anyway, so after that, that was a really weird time. And that photo that you used for the live is actually from an article that I was interviewed for, a Dutch article. They sent a reporter over to Manchester to interview me about it, and sent a photographer to my house to take some photos, and that's one of the photos. Anyway, so the BBC was getting in touch with me about a few things, and then one time I did. They've got this thing called the Listening Project, and I did an interview with my dad about the Ariana Grande concert and the bomb, and then they had me in about on the anniversary and all, that sort of stuff. And then they invited me to come and do the first episode of the Dead Good show, and it was fantastic. It's a great concept where you just talk about things, things that are in the news, things that involve Manchester, and I love it. And that put me in touch with so many amazing and interesting and fascinating people. And what I would do is we'd do the show, and then it tended to be much younger people, by the way. I'd give them a lift home because I always had the car, so I'd give them a lift home. And one day there was a girl, and I was telling her about a poem I'd written, how I wanted to turn it into a film, a short film, or do a documentary. And I said, if you're a documentary maker, I've got a story that you could use. She was like, if that's what you want to do, why don't you just apply at the BBC? I was like, I don't really know. She said, well, why don't you apply for the journalism trainee scheme? I was like, okay, what's that? And it's a scheme that trains new journalists. And it was closing in 3 days. Mm. And that's when I found out about it. If I hadn't sat down with that girl, if I'd met a week later, it wouldn't have happened. I went home, found it, applied for it, waited. It was 3 stages of application. And I had to do like a video application and send that off. And then I had a day's full interview down in Birmingham, which was really fun, actually. And the best thing about it, sorry if I thought it was going to be about race, guys. The best thing about it was that I was interviewed by 2 black people. Yeah. And I was so, like, it was that moment I was like, this is what I need to do. this is what I want.
How often does
And
that happen for you as a black woman or a mixed race woman? I'm not entirely sure how you do class yourself as a black woman. You call yourself a black woman, wouldn't you?
I would call myself politically black, but I am
Okay.
actually mixed race. My mum's white
Okay.
and my dad's black. But people who are full black, I suppose, people who are black have experienced a lot more oppression than I do as a
Yeah.
lighter skinned
Yeah.
mixed woman.
So for you as a mixed race woman,
yeah,
how many times have you been in an interview environment where there has been another person of colour in the room interviewing you?
one other time, and that was a job which I came out of that. I was so surprised when I went in there. I came out of it thinking, oh, I think I might get this, and I didn't, but I'm glad I didn't now. But it really buoyed me up because I'd been in an interview once, and I won't mention the organisation, but it was someone an organisation I would have thought would have known better. And I had an interview panel of 5 people, and they were all white, and 3 of them were men and 2 of them were women, and the women barely spoke. And I completely cocked up the interview. But that's just the way it is, and the only way to remedy that is to get people in, get people of colour in and get them up to those levels, which just doesn't happen. So I'd applied for this, and I was still doing the Dead Good show. And what I would do, and this is how I know I manifested. I would walk across the plaza at Media City, and I would say, I'm going to work here. This year, I'm going to work here. This is where I'm going to come to work. And I'd say it out loud. And I would get upstairs, and someone would offer me a coffee. And I'd go, no, I'll make my own. People that work here make their own coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, even after that interview, even though I felt quite secure in what had happened, I heard nothing for so long. I thought, it's fine. I've got a job, which I don't actively hate, which is all you can hope for these days. But I was just like, if I don't get it, I don't get it. It's fine. But I was still doing the Dead Good show and thinking about it, putting all my focus. Because if you take your eye off the ball, if you take your eye off it, then the universe will think you don't want it anymore. So I was focusing.
You can get quite easily distracted, can't you, when you're manifesting and things aren't happening at the speed you want them to.
Yeah.
And it can be very easy to lose yourself. I've done that. Yeah. I've done that this year. Like, I had 6 months of just being all over the place, and I've come out the other side, I'm like, oh, shit, that thing I was manifesting, it's not happening. The reason it hasn't happened is because I totally lost sight of it.
Yeah.
I just stopped being focused on it.
Yeah, stop being there in the moment with it. Because it's manifesting is a very mindful activity. You have to be mindful.
In the moment right now.
In the moment right now. And there was a point where I had a job interview at my current job for a job which was a lot more money, even more than the BBC job. And I was like, I had to make a decision then and there about which one I wanted. I had the interview. I was like, if I focus on that one, then I'm probably going to get it. But then I'm not going to get the BBC job, and that's the one. And at that point, I realised it wasn't about the money. It was about, because I've chased the money before, and that was the job I got made redundant from. So I'm very wary of chasing the money. I wanted to work at the BBC. So I focused on that, and in July I got the call. I'd been offered the job. And from a pool of 5,000 people for 40 jobs, I'd been given one. And I think that this is the first successful job interview or an application that I've had where I've genuinely thought, I really deserve this. I don't feel the imposter syndrome, although I'm not there yet, so that could all change. But I don't feel that sort of imposter syndrome, like I shouldn't have got this. I feel like this was always meant to be. And I did this. I got this for myself.
And that's because you've been doing the preparation in the way that you've been showing up. So you've been going to the BBC a couple of times a month and being in that building and you know, like that, making that your territory and being like,
Yeah.
yes, I belong here, and feeling comfortable there. And and people, when you talk about manifesting, people get a bit like, oh, it's a bit woo woo, and like
Yeah.
depending on how you think of it, it can be a bit woo woo, and you totally can look at it from the other angle as well. You can totally
It's a
just consider it.
practical thing.
It's totally a practical thing.
Yeah.
Like if you decide that you want to work at the BBC, like go to the BBC building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's not stupid. That
No.
makes total sense. You know, if you decide that you want to set up a charity working, supporting young adults, go and find a way that you can be working and supporting young adults on a voluntary basis
Yeah.
while the rest of it works itself up. It's the
Yes.
intention, you know,
Absolutely.
rather than
Absolutely.
just like,
Those.
I want this, I'm going to make myself a vision board, I'm going to imagine it's going to happen, I'm just going to sit back and let it come to
Yeah.
me. That's not the way that manifesting works, you
I didn't
know.
even make a vision board.
I don't make vision boards. Who's got time for that?
Who's got time for that? But you know something? I was
Too
driving
busy
somewhere the other
making
day.
plans.
Yeah, too busy making plans and making messes and making noise, yeah? And the other day I was
Yeah,
driving somewhere and I
yeah,
saw this house. I was like, that's going to be my house. I'm going to live there. It's a beautiful house. I'm not going to put it on vision board, but I've still got it in my mind that that's where I want to live.
yeah.
And the other, on top of that, so I start that job in 3 weeks. Ah! I'm so excited. I'm going to London for 3 weeks. I hate London, but I'm gonna love it. London scares me. It does, because people don't
Yeah.
smile, and I smile a lot.
And
But
it's
I
full
mean,
of Londoners.
it's full of
Like that.
Londoners. No offense, Londoners. Some of my family are from London. Some of my best friends are
Yeah,
Londoners, actually. But all of this is so. When I was talking about having people, the right people in your life. So there's a few people I have to sort of shout out to now. So there's you, obviously. You do so much work with me, and you have really brought me to a position where I could manifest this thing that I want. You were the person that planted the seed. There's also a girl called Kaz, who is my drag brother, Jack the lad. Look her up, she's amazing, who has just moved to Amsterdam, and I miss her terribly. And she helped me get rid of the toxic people in my life and built my confidence when I was feeling like crap. And of course, I have to say, talk about my wife, Nikki, because she is there championing me every single day. When I think that I'm shit, she tells me I'm actually the shit. She she has no idea what she does for me, and without her, I wouldn't. There's no way I would have even applied at the BBC without her encouragement. And there is, even though all of this wonderful stuff has happened, there is like an addendum now. So I've just started. I've just realised what this group on Facebook that I created is meant to be. So it's called the Manchester Queer Collective, and I'm building a lobbying group to make things better for queer people in Manchester.
amazing.
And I remember we had a leaving party for Kaz last weekend, and she got up on stage and she said, if you saw this girl a year ago, you wouldn't believe that she was the same person. And none of these things could have happened a year ago.
No,
I had to be in the right place. And do you know what? I didn't talk about manifesting when you're depressed. And I should, because it's easy to focus so hard on your depression, and that's okay. It's okay to focus hard on your depression. And the universe isn't going to be like, well, if she's sad about it, then I'm not going to do it for her. Because the universe isn't stupid. The universe doesn't
it's
can
not a
see things.
moral thing. It's not a
No,
moral
it's
thing.
not.
There's no
No,
good
it's
and
not a moral
bad.
thing. No, it's not. You know, the idea of manifesting when you talk about the privilege, it's not just about the privilege of being white or the privilege of being middle class. It's also the privilege of being mentally well, because it's always a lot about you've got to be so positive all the time. But you can't always be positive. But if you've got a dream, just cling on to it, even if it's right at the back of your mind, even if you think you'll never, ever, ever achieve it. If it's there in your head and you're thinking, this is what I want, then it'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah. God, yes. I think that that thing about dreams, and like, just because you're not in a place where right now you can see that coming for you, just because you're in a place of darkness right now, just because you're in a place where things are tricky right now, that does not mean that you're not allowed to have any hope.
No.
And I think that's what dreams are. They're hope, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've been in situations and where my mental health has been so bad,
yeah,
that I've had to really dig deep to just find something to feel hopeful about, you know. And like you, I guess when you were saying about the thing about, you know, my kind of baseline is kind of an air of sadness. I think in Edwardian times we would be considered melancholy, wouldn't we?
Oh yes,
like,
you know. Melancholy.
But like, melancholy people did amazing things.
Yeah, they wrote amazing literature.
Edgar Allan Poe was the most melancholy bastard you could ever
Absolutely.
come across.
He was like the original
some of
goth.
the best writing. Yeah. You know, and so so you've kind of got to just, you know, there is that thing of that Instagram manifesting lifestyle that really robs a lot of us of ever thinking that we could do those things. And I think that there's value in being able to say to people, do you know what, whatever it is that you have hope for, whatever it is that is your dream, you are totally allowed to give that energy, you know.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be well to allow yourself to hold on to it. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to.
But also, when we talk about giving it energy, sometimes you have no energy to give, even give the thought that things might be better. But that doesn't mean that the universe isn't carrying on with the manifesting.
True.
If the thing is, if you are well and you are able to focus 100%, manifesting will happen. If you are unwell and you can't even get out of bed in the morning, the universe isn't going to just stop working for you. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a weird way to look at it, because a lot of manifesting is about, you know, the whole gratitude thing, which I am grateful every day. But you know something? Back in those dark days when I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't find a single thing to be grateful for. Mm-hmm. Because I couldn't even think that I deserved anything. Mm-hmm. But I know that. So
what do you think for you then, when you couldn't see those things, you couldn't, inverted commas, force yourself to be grateful because you just didn't feel very fucking grateful. You felt grim.
I didn't. I felt fucking grim. I did.
And I do quite a lot of work with clients around, if it's safe to feel grim, sometimes it's right and proper to feel grim.
Yeah.
You know, like we fight so hard feeling like shit all the time, that actually sometimes we don't give ourselves and our bodies and our minds time to process stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
But when you are in that situation, what was it that you feel was the biggest thing that carried you through that? What if you were going to speak to someone who is in that situation, who has big hopes and dreams and thoughts and aspirations for where they're going, but right now it feels so out of reach and it feels so many miles away and they're in such a dark place, what would you say to yourself in that situation with your hindsight glasses on?
With my 2020 hindsight vision, the first thing I would say is take this time to sit with it, because it's okay to sit with it. Just don't make it your home. You know? I don't like to use the phrase, you know, it gets better, this too will pass, because those platitudes don't mean anything when you're depressed, when you're in active depression, as I call it. And actually, the things that I would suggest for people who have depression, I think that there are two types of self-care. There's preventative self-care and there's restorative self-care. And what you hear, preventative self-care is what you hear people saying, just go for a run, just go and get out in nature. You know, have a bath. Well, the bath can be restorative too. But like, you know, those things that you do, some exercise, the eye rolling. Now, for some people, they are restorative and they will help. But for a lot of people, when someone says go out for a run, you just want to tell them to fuck off. And for me, that's because those are preventative measures. If you're, and I do often.
When anyone tells me to go for a run, I tell them to fuck off. It doesn't have to be. Fuck off.
I became one of those arsehole runners in 2019. I started doing my 5K, and I was like, "Oh, this is great!" But I tell you something: if I couldn't do it in summer 2018 because I couldn't do that when I was in active depression.
Yeah.
So for me, and it's different for different people, but for me, restorative depression includes eating crap foods. Oh yeah, that's the other preventative. Yeah, restorative self-care. That's the other thing. The other preventative thing is like, well, just eat a salad, eat a salad and stop eating. Have some broccoli. Eat some kale. Kale works wonders.
Like cracking open your 5th double-decker of the day.
Yes. Eat crap food, because you know something. While you're in active depression, eating 5 double-deckers is not going to kill you. But I tell you something. If you can't eat anything, it's better than eating nothing. I watch lots of comedy on TV. I cuddle with my cats. I force them to cuddle me. And I think one of the most important things is to allow yourself, if you find something funny, let yourself laugh. Because when you're depressed, you just think that you're not allowed to laugh. And that people are going to be like, gotcha, you're not really depressed. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Don't look very depressed to me.
Yeah, don't look very... Because depression is, people think depression is sadness. It's really not. It's so many things. And depression can be hysterical laughter when you just find a moment of funny, So to do as much restorative self-care as you can. Find your person, whether that's a partner, spouse, best friend, who you can confide in and who you can talk to. And the right people will show themselves.
Yeah.
And they will be the people who won't turn and run.
And for me, a big thing around that was find people who will hold space for you to be how you need to be.
Yes.
Be cautious around seeking out fixers.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because
there are people doing the rounds who will love it. They'd love a project like me. My God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So be discerning.
Yeah.
I think around that.
I've started
and find people who.
I've started creating Facebook groups of like-minded people, so other people who have mental health problems that people can just drop into and say like, and other people, we can all come in and talk them down, because sometimes that's what you need. And in answer to your question, it's a really hard question to answer that. What was the thing that kind of pulled me through it? Because I don't think that there was a thing that pulled me through it. I think the thing that pulled me through it was honestly, it was life. It was, it was the universe. It wasn't my time. It wasn't my time to go. It wasn't my time to wallow for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. When it was time to be over, it was over.
Yeah.
And, I haven't even talked about timelines. Timelines are so important. I'm 35 and I was like, I'm never going to get to do the things that I want to do. I made choices 10 years ago and they were the wrong choices. That was what I thought. 15, 20 years ago, I made the wrong choices. But actually, no, I didn't. I made the exact right choices.
Yeah.
But my timeline just happens to be longer than other people's.
And I think, and I'll talk about this on a video, I'm sure, again in the future, but it's something I talk a lot about with clients, that this idea that if you make the wrong choice, you're going to ruin your life. Like the notion that a decision can mean that everything after that decision is wrong.
Yeah.
Is such a load of bullshit.
It really is.
And the way, for me, when I'm thinking about what self-care really looks like and loving yourself really looks like, what that looks like for me is trusting that I'm a resilient, capable, worthwhile, valuable individual.
Badass woman.
And
and one decision is not going to ruin the rest of my life, because I'm not going to let it.
No.
And because that strips me of power, you know. And one of the things that I really wish I wish for people is that they start to understand how much power they have, that human resilience, you know, and that you can trust yourself all day, every day. You can trust yourself. It takes practice, and sometimes it won't feel like you can. But I think if more people practice trusting themselves, that carries you through. You know, that's really powerful. And I speak to people. I've got clients who are like in their early 20s, and they're saying things to me like, you know, I haven't got a partner, I don't own my own house, you know, I can't drive. And you know, you're just like, my God, I'm 44. And you know, these conversations aren't going to go anywhere. You're going to have to decide if this is going to be okay with you or not, because trust me, in 25 years time, you're still going to be giving yourself the same hard time, because we all do it. That's, you know, the human condition.
And these are the worst thing I think that happens to a teenager happens in year 9, when they say to you, pick the things that you want to do for effectively, potentially, the rest of your life.
The rest of your life, yeah.
The rest of your life. This is the decisions you make now will affect the rest of your life, which university you go to, the job you have in the future. And that is terrifying. And it's also bullshit. You know?
Yeah, it's total bullshit.
It's absolute twaddle. And, you know, I know Tilly's in year 9, isn't she? Or is she in year 10 now?
Tilly's in year 10 now.
Year 10. Yeah. You know, it's no wonder that our young people are struggling so much. I remember when I was in sixth form, when I was in year 11, I got caught smoking, and my parents said, right, you're not allowed to do the thing you want to do. You're not allowed to go to college. You have to go to sixth form instead. Because college was a little bit too free. It was a little bit too, you know. And that absolutely devastated me. And for a long time, when I was at university doing my drama degree, I was like, if only I'd have been to bloody college and done a BTEC, everything would be different. And even through into, you know, starting my career, when I started getting jobs, if only. But no, if only nothing. Whatever you do today, like when you, people talk about how one little change 10 years ago might have done something. Well, make that change today.
Yeah.
You know, be the change. You are the change. And actually, one of the most empowering things that I've ever done is making that decision to focus solely on, this is what I want to do. And I can't believe it's taken me so long. And do you know what else? In the past few months, so I've reached my mid-30s, and all of a sudden, all these amazing role models are coming into my life. Not just you, not just Kaz, but like Lizzo. Oh my God, Lizzo is wonderful. And the way she talks about herself, the amount she loves herself, it's just inspiring. Janelle Monáe, all these amazing young women who have it together, and they need to be in the ears of all of our young people. Because when you get to our age and you're tired, sad and old, and you're going...
Speak for yourself. Oh dear.
Yeah, the hardest thing for me about this new job is I'm almost positive that everyone's going to be in their 20s, and they're going to be like, do you want to come out for a drink? And I'm going to be like, no, I want to go home and read.
Bake-Off's on.
Bake-Off's on, yeah. Oh God, Tuesdays. I'm definitely not going to miss it. And Strictly's on a Saturday now, so, you know.
Yeah.
No, we're not old. We're still young and vibrant, and do you know what? We're more resilient now, at least I am, than I was when I was 20. I remember when I was 18, I thought I knew everything. And I got to 21 and I was like, I didn't know nothing then. Now I know everything. And now I'm 35 and I'm like, I know nothing. I'm still learning every single day about myself, about the world, about what's problematic, which is apparently everything. You know, including me sometimes. I've been told.
Turns out I'm a bit problematic.
It turns out I'm quite problematic. That is interesting. Isn't that interesting? And I suppose
Yeah.
just to finish off, and Heidi, tell me if you don't want me to talk about this, but one of the most important techniques that I learned from you is don't get on the train.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about it, yeah.
Okay, so
Totally. It's
and it
something we dive
happens.
into a lot deeper in boot camp for
Yeah.
people who want to kind of, yeah.
And what I tend to do is I will text Heidi and say, and just send her a picture of a train, and she'll go, "Okay, are you on the train? Is the train at the station?" The train is any sort of issue that you can ruminate on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I ruminate a lot. I mean, I've been up till 4 o'clock in the morning thinking about something that happened 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens when can happen at any time of the day. It can be something that's happened today that's frustrated me. And when I started doing boot camp, when I started using this technique, once I was on that train, I was not getting off it. I just couldn't. And I would think and think and think and think and get myself all worked up. Well, now, sometimes I don't even get on the train. I just watch it go past.
Sometimes you message me. I've got someone else who's done boot camp as well, and you and her, you both message me and go, "Oh fuck, I'm on the train," and I'll send a thing back going, "Get off the train!"
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, "Phew, I'm off the train. It's okay."
Yeah. And it's like, but that used to take days, and now it's within about 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm off the train, and it frees up a lot of time, to be honest. So of all the techniques, that's the one thing I would say get into the boot camp for, because if you're a ruminator, it's just it's so helpful.
It's the overthinker's lifesaver, I think.
Yeah, it really
and
is.
I think, and like one of the things that I really like about boot camp is that technique has really evolved as more boot campers have come and used it.
Yeah.
And we have such a giggle about being on the train. It's kind of the thing. I think the humor is such an amazing tool and such a great leveler, you know, and everyone I think that has been through my boot camp will laugh if they hear me going, "Don't get on the train." You know, so it's kind of like a shared language. You know,
in fact,
it just helps you see the ridiculousness of the situation. Like there is no train. You're not on a platform.
No.
You know,
the funny thing is, I really like train stations. It's one of my secret things is that I'm obsessed with abandoned train stations. So it's even funnier for me because when I'm at the station, that's something that I would generally enjoy.
Yeah. I've enjoyed building up a whole picture around different train scenarios. So like, you know, I have different coloured carriages for different things. Like I don't ruminate on the issue of the train, but I've got a very colourful, imaginative world around those trains. Like I could tell you what the conductor's wearing.
Yeah, that's the thing, that because if you're concentrating on the physical train, then you're not ruminating on the thing. It works.
Yeah. It does work. It does. This has been amazing. So if people want to find you, connect with you, where can they find you? What should they? I mean, they could just pitch up to the BBC and find a woman like making her own coffee, going, "I'm working now." Where else can they find you online?
So you can find me at Frustrated Poet, which is my Twitter handle. That is the best place to find me because I have not yet mastered Instagram. Or just if you want to find me, Lydia Bernsmeier-Rullow on Facebook. If you send me a message saying that you saw me in the video, then I'll add you. I'm being a bit more cautious about who I add at the moment, so just let me know that you saw me on the Unstoppable Women, and I'll add you. And this is an honest, true thing. If you're struggling and you just need to vent or you need some advice, I won't say that I'm an expert, but I do have 15 odd years of experience of depression. So, you know, do hit me up and I can either signpost you to some really good resources or I can help talk you down.
Amazing. Now, have you got a Buy Me a Coffee link or not?
I don't have a Buy Me a Coffee link, but I think I'm going to get one because I was like, ooh.
I think you need to get one. So what I will do is I will show Lydia how to set that up. and I will post a link for us both so that if you have enjoyed this content,
Yay.
it's given you value, you can buy us a coffee. It's an amazing
Oh,
app.
that would be lovely.
Basically, yeah, then people can be like, yeah, you're an amazing human. Here's a coffee. It's the best thing. You get one free one. You're like, oh my God, someone bought me a coffee. It's the best feeling. So we'll link that up. Just stay with me while I just tell people what's happening next week. So next week, I'm interviewing Gemma Kennedy. She is a blogger, an EFT specialist. So what she does specifically is she works with people, particularly queer people, around teaching them how to use EFT. For people who don't know what EFT is, it's tapping, emotional freedom technique. And it's an incredible tool. So we're going to talk about that next week. I'm going to talk about queering the personal development space. And,
love it.
That stuff, I know, and that stuff about privilege and how that looks for people who aren't, white, cisgendered, middle class, muggles, and like, we're going to talk about that. So that's going to be next week on Sunday at 7:00. If you are not already signed up to my mailing list, go to the sign up button here, join my mailing list. I email a copy of this video out every week. And if you are interested in boot camp, you want to be signed up to that mailing list because my boot camp is relaunching at the back end of October for a new intake of awesome humans. And I think I'm allowed to say this, that Lydia will be performing live at Thrive, which is my live event in January in Doncaster.
Yes, you will.
Which I'm working on with the incredible Lindsay McGlone. So that's Saturday, the 18th of January in Doncaster. Watch this space for tickets. They'll be on sale very soon. But Lydia's going to come and perform some spoken word for us. And the speaker roster for that event is, wait till you see it. So yeah, thank you so much for giving me some time tonight. It's been so lovely. It always is lovely to connect with you. And you'll be able to rewatch this. And there are some lovely comments on here. People have found it really helpful. Denise is saying the path that you had to take is to get you where you are now. It's your time for your light to shine brighter, which is lovely. And people Linda's saying that you're the first woman of color who she's heard talking about the law of attraction. That's an amazing thing to hear.
That is great.
And Deborah said it's so important to talk about all of these issues. I always hope that when people speak out about mental health, it will give someone else the courage to reach out. Thank you both for doing this. So,
well, I think maybe I need to start doing regular lives about this topic. This might be a good next step.
You could give real value with that, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about this on your platform. I love you to death, Heidi. You're one of my favourite people, and I will see you soon. Mwah.
I'll see you soon. Goodbye, darling. See you later. Bye, guys. Bye. Shares are always appreciated.
Shares are appreciated.
Especially when I drop my phone. Oh, my God. If I was a professional, it'd be dangerous. See you later. Bye.
Bye.